Hello and welcome back to the Rugby Pod. I'm Andy Rowan. Big Jim and Goody are with me as usual. We're going to have a full debrief on the British and Irish Lions' first test victory over the Springboks. Then we're going to take a look ahead to the crucial second test. Plus, we'll be heading back inside the Lions camp once again, this time to have a chat with scrum half Ali Price. So settle back, enjoy, and make sure you've subscribed to Spotify. How's your week been, lads?
Unreal. Said it. Straight in.
He's happy.
Hell of a week.
He's happy.
Hell of a week. Of course I'm happy, Andrew. It's 1-0. It's 1-0.
It's coming on.
I'm going to go first, Andrew. Is it coming out? Rhetorical question. Well, statistically, if you look at it, if you win the first test, it's coming out. I've had a hell of a week, guys. I have been back doing what I do best. Smoozing, interacting, drinking, eating, training. Basically, I've been away from the kids. And I've been out of the house. I was down in London last week twice. How good does that sound? Twice. I was doing an activation, a barbecue versus Bri for Now, that was streaming the British and Irish Lions games with Matt Dawson and Francois Lowe, two lovely human beings. Just loved being around people again. So that was part of the week. Andrew, we were down at London Welsh Rugby Club doing a fan zone piece for Rugby Pass. And then I was at the game. As close to the game as you could get.
Were you?
Yeah,
You
I
weren't
was
at
at
it,
the
were
game. Yeah, it felt like I was at it. I was at the Pear Tree in Edinburgh with the famous grouse. So working, earning, activating, and fully engaged. Lads, as you know, I'm meant to be around people. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the saying is. I don't want to get too scientific. I don't want to get too personal. But I enjoy company of fellow humans, of fellow like-minded, fellow humans, testosterone fueled, not necessarily alpha, because Andrew, you know, now your testosterone levels have gone down since you put on 10 stone and you're over 40. But I just like being around people. I've enjoyed this week, and obviously the win at the weekend just capped it off as we go into the week of the second test. And it's not going to be as busy for me. But Andrew, I was feeling you were a bit down yesterday, being Sunday, the day before we recorded the podcast. Are you all right or not? I mean, we do have these up and down moments, don't we?
Well, Jim, just quickly, you know, you're buzzing. You've been doing loads of work last week. I just hope that with all that work, you said you're earning money. I hope you're going to take the family on holiday at the end of the Lions series, or so. Just treat the family to something, because you're at your happiest, at your best when you're away from them, working, you know, getting coin in for the family. What are you going to treat them for anything, or is it just nah? Back to school, kids.
I've booked a holiday.
Oh, go on.
I'm going to Ibiza for Andy Rose Stag Do. It's booked.
So not family orientated at all. Just lads.
No, well, I bought back a rucksack today from John Lewis, so she's buzzing off the back of that.
Nice.
The kids have got a colouring book, and
yeah, I mean,
what more? Exactly, what more can you do? What more can you be, Andrew? Do you know what I mean?
I hear you.
There does feel, and it's ironic that the Lions game's being played with no fans, but it does feel like there's an air of normality. However that may look going forward, or however that may have looked in the past, I do feel that being around people, sun's out, guns out, and all that, for me personally, and it has been an up and down 18 months. As we know, we're not going to go back and bring the tone down and go through the archives of how poor the last 18 months has been, not just for me, but for everyone listening. But it is. It seems like there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's sport on. And again, yesterday being Sunday, I sat with a group of lads, more together. We've given them a shout out on the podcast before. They're cycling from John O'Groats down to Land's End, group of rugby lads, raising money for Doddy, raising money for Hambo. And it felt right. I'm amongst these lads that have been cooped up in their house as well. They're out raising money. I'm there. I'm not too sure by me being there if that adds to any more money, but it adds to the energy in the room. And I tell you what, I was just chatting to them, and it was interesting to listen to their questions, Andrew, because they love the podcast. They're big listeners. All they wanted to talk about was Bush and Conkers. That's all they wanted. They weren't interested in the insight to the game. They wanted Bush and Conkers. And I tell you what, Andrew, I bloody delivered and I gave it to them. Of course I did. Of course I did. So
yes, Jim.
I gave them the 15, I gave them the 23 of Conkers and Bushes, and they went away on their bikes to head back down south, and they were happy.
Lovely. Well, I'm glad you're happy, Jim. I'm glad you're happy, Jim, because I've had a tough couple of days.
Talking of Conkers.
Well, no. Well, stones really, as opposed to conkers. But Saturday night, I watched the game, and it wasn't the most exhilarating game, let's be honest, but it was a great comeback and victory, and the feel-good vibes were there. 8:30 Saturday night, I'm like, oh, what's that? Turn around, looked at the missus, said, have you just stabbed me in the back? She's like, not today, no, why? I'm like,
Gout.
shooting. I've got shooting pain down the right-hand side where my kidneys are.
Oh, God.
I've been in bed for a couple of days. Kidney stones. They've absolutely wiped me out.
Well, that's what I said, Andrew. Stones and conkers.
There you go.
The only way to get rid of kidney stones, because I'm a philosopher, is to weed them out through the conker, is it not?
It is, James. It is. There are other treatments available, and I've got to see someone on Wednesday. But my God, I spoke to my doctor on Sunday evening, and I'll say this, she said, apparently, if you have kidney stones and you pass them through your urine, it hurts more than giving birth to babies. And I'm like, no, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. I tried to tell that to the missus, and she's like, don't be so fucking ridiculous. I said, what do you know? You had a cesarean, so that's fine. But to all the women out there, I was told by my female doctor that a man passing kidney stones goes down into the groin. The pain is meant to be excruciating. So I'm not looking forward to that. That'll be me over the next sort of 24 hours. And I don't believe it, but a doctor told me. So if it's not Dr. Jim, or it's not Dr. I can't say her name because that's GDPR and all that stuff, I don't believe it. Jim, do you reckon that's the truth? A man missing out his kidney stones is going to be more painful than giving birth.
I'll be honest with you. I don't want to talk myself up here, but I probably wouldn't flinch. But I don't want to put your medical records out there, and I don't know whether your doctor has seen you when she pulled the foreskin. I mean, when she looked at you last and did the examination. I'm telling you now, there's not everyone would be in that much pain peeing out a stone unless you've got a conker. So you've done yourself an injustice there, Andrew, or you sat at home, you've got the holiday blues, you're feeling vulnerable, and you're happy to put on record that it was like giving birth at the weekend. Now, I'll just reiterate humbly, I wouldn't flinch myself.
I think it's going to hurt, James. I think it's going to hurt, but we'll see. But I feel all right. I've had a bit of a sleep this afternoon. It's basically quite good to get out of childcare, isn't it? So you just say you're not feeling great, go to bed, have a lie down, sweat in the bed, say your kidneys are hurting, wait till the missus, you hear her walking upstairs, then you're like, oh, my back, and you get away with it. So yeah, it's been a tough couple of days, but I'm happy to be back chatting ruggers with you two mugs and celebrating the fact that the British and Irish Lions are 1-0 up.
What do you guys make of the first test?
What do we make of the first test? Well, it's amazing we won. Let's put that out there. Yeah. What are the headlines coming out of it, Andrew? South Africa, absolutely fact. Let's get it out there. In the second half, they look absolutely bollocks, if we're going to speak candidly. I thought the Lions looked good. I didn't think we played that well. To be 12-3 down at half time against a team who it could have been worse. I think, again, we'll just give you some headlines, in my opinion. I thought we got the rub of the green with the referee. I thought that the subs made a huge difference when they came on. I thought that tactically we played very well in terms of the kicking game. What about the bomb going up in the air straight for Cheslin Colby and Duhan van der Merwe and the old piece chasing him? I mean, I thought tactically we played really well. And it's huge. Let's put the headline out there. It is absolutely huge to win that first test. And I'm loving, and I've seen on social media, the fallout and Razzies on Twitter, if that is really him. I'm absolutely loving it. Some people are getting annoyed with it. This is what it's about, is it not? It's like the Lions winning a game in South Africa, the first test. The build-up's been immense. We didn't know whether we were going to get a game. We've got a game. Feel sorry for the players for them not being any fans. Nonetheless, we are where we are. And that's a massive win. And it shows you with the build-up that South Africa have had and the COVID cases that they've had and everything else that's going on there, that even half-cooked, they ain't far away. So you're thinking this next test is going to be an absolute ding-a-ling. I mean, ding-dong.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that you can look at a number of things. The British and Irish Lions the British and Irish Lions were dominated in that first half, and had it not been for Marrow's turnover near the try line, it could have been worse. 12-3, as you said, Jim, could have been 19-3 if they'd have scored off that. So there's some big moments in that first half where, we were bit naive. A few penalties. Tom Curry gave a couple. Elliot Daly gave a couple. And then two things happened at half time. You're in the changing rooms, and we've got no idea what was said. But from what I hear, Warren Gatland just dropped his kegs, showed his nuts, and said, "These are the biggest testicles you've ever seen. You guys need to get yours out in the second half and turn this around." And I'm sure that's what happened, and I'm sure they all got the nuts out, and that's what happened.
No, Mako got his out, and everyone walked out.
Oh yeah, maybe, yeah. But the flip side of it, the South Africans changed their whole front row at half time, and I still don't get it, because you had complete dominance in that area. Sutherland was struggling, and they seemed to be really getting on top of the British and Irish Lions in that area. He changes the whole of the front row, and obviously then Mako comes on, solidifies at loose head. But it was just such a change, wasn't it? And when you've got dominance, I never understand a preset plan of changing a front row at a certain minute, come what may. The feeling of the game, I felt he should have left his front row on there because of the rewards that they were starting to get. And it just flipped in the second half. The box kick from Ali Price just after half time, it wasn't contestable. It just landed in between Quagga Smith and Villy LaRue. And to me, Villy LaRue should have just come and owned it. Then off the back of that, boom, I think Curry absolutely melts Quagga Smith in the back legally. They get the turnover, they kick to the corner, the driving line out. Oh my days, Luke Karamseki scores. And that was the game-changing momentum that the Lions needed. And it came from a South African error, but it came from a desire and a willingness. And if you actually go back and watch the clip, I think when you look at the actual kick chase from that box kick, it doesn't look great from the Lions' perspective. But what they did is fed off the error by Quagga Smith, and then that led to another error, and we ended up winning the kicking battle in the second half, winning the aerial battle, and that was the game, wasn't it? It was the most physical game of chess you could ever see, because a couple of times that the Lions chucked it around, it seemed a bit harem-scarum. I mean, you only have to look at the one that Deolande's try was. You only have to look at Deolande's try that was turned over for Cheslin Colby's knock-on, thinking, what are we doing there? But when we got our tactics right, kicked on the money, kicked to compete, we dominated the airwaves in the second half. And I think that and South Africa's discipline, which just went to pieces in the second half, was the big differences. And obviously Warren G getting his nuts out at half time.
What'd you make of the two TMO calls by South African Marius Jonker?
Yeah, so the first one was the kick through from Am to Willie LaRue, and it was fractional. And when I watched it, I thought LaRue was behind. There's stuff going around on social where people are freeze framing it and they're drawing lines all over the pitch. I did feel for the match officials in that. I don't think refereed the game that well around the breakdown. I thought we let a lot of stuff go, and you're just hoping that these headline decisions aren't what dictate the game, because then it becomes questionable, doesn't it? Well, it becomes questionable to us in the media and the social media engine that makes decisions for the way that we live our lives after the match. But I think in hindsight, he probably got it about right. Like Goody said, the one with Cheslin Colby, we all saw that. We didn't know whether he was going to go back for the knock-on in the air or the slap down in the air, or however you want to look at it. But that's probably the worrying thing for the Lions, that if it wasn't for them small decisions that were huge decisions, then it could have been very different. But, like Gatland said, you get the bounce of the ball. You win some, you lose some. And that's what's going to make this second test so good, because it was so close. There were these decisions. South Africa are going to be better. Andrew?
Yeah, I think the big one for me is just how it was communicated, because the on-field decision for Villy LaRue's try, he was given a try. So on-field decision is try, then the letter of the law is there has to be clear and obvious evidence to overturn that. And Marius Jonker's wording, I think he was saying something like, it's tight, but I think, it's a tight one, but I think he's just in front. So it wasn't clear and obvious. So we got the rub of the green there. The big one for me, and, I'm actually not too fussed about Villy LaRue's try, because the South Africans scored not long after that anyway, didn't they? So, when you've had one disallowed and you score not long afterwards, it kind of cancels the first one out, because you wouldn't have been in that position necessarily to score the second one. The big one for me is, and he's a friend of the show, Hamish Watson. That is a yellow card all day long. And at 19 points to 17 to the Lions, I know Andre Pollard still gets a penalty and misses it, but you've got the last, however long it was, 10 minutes without Hamish Watson. That's a big difference, I think. It's definitely not a red card. Let's be clear about that. But for me, as soon as you lift the leg over the horizontal, even though there wasn't too much power in sort of Villarreal being put down into the ground or driven into the ground or whatever you think, the letter of the law, that's a yellow card. And they didn't check it. I'll go back to Jim's point about the coverage. We weren't hearing some of the TMO conversations with Nick Berry, which, you're watching BT Sport, and I know they're coming off the world feed and there's issues because Sky are doing it from, their studios here, and, they're basically reliant upon what's being given to them from South Africa. It didn't make out the clarity that we all needed as fans and as pundits watching the game, the clarity required on decision making when, some of them in the first half, you couldn't hear him, could you, Marius Jonker? So, and the big thing is, I tweeted about it, World Rugby have put him in a horrific position because he's now getting buried by South Africans. We've seen in the press people calling him a coward, Marius Jonker, and it's just ridiculous. Gats has gone out a few days before the test series into the press and said, I'm not happy, it's a disgrace that World Rugby have put a South African in charge of being TMO for 3 tests without having a contingency plan. I get that. I just don't see how World Rugby have come up with this idea. They'd have known for quite some time that the New Zealand official that was going to be the TMO for the test series couldn't make it. So why isn't there a better plan in place? You put Marius Jonker in an awful position, and all the memes going around. Jim, I saw your one on Twitter. I tweeted that Gatland was living rent-free in Marius Jonker's head for a bit of banter or whatever. But actually, World Rugby have really got to take a look at themselves for putting him in that position, because by Gats following it in the press pre-match saying how they're angry about it, it obviously shines a light on it. And yes, they got the rub of the green. Hamish Watson should have been yellow carded. That may change the picture, but as I said, sometimes you get the calls for you and sometimes they go against you, and the Lions had the rub of the green, and we'll take the win.
How good is Rassie Erasmus's social media activity been? Or is it Jacko Johan?
Who is it?
Who is it?
Well, he's got a blue tick. And have you seen who he follows?
Yeah, apparently he just follows Alaman Jones, Marrow, and Jacko Johan.
Of course. Who is Jacko?
I think it's maybe his love child.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. Like, who is Jacko? It is a bit weird, though, isn't it? You've got one of the best coaches in the world, the best coaches who have ever done it, having won a World Cup. He's running the water on, his mask down by his nipples, and he's put on a bit. Let's put it out there. Not that matters. He's been comfortable the last couple of years. He's not feeding anyone any water. Like
he's carrying one bottle on, to be fair.
The lads are absolutely dying for a drink, and he ain't feeding any water at all. He's just feeding messages with his mask down by his nipples. And then he's hitting social media. It's all a bit weird, but I'm loving it. I'll be honest. I like all these interactions. It makes me laugh. It makes me happy. But he's calling out. He's calling out the referee. He's calling out some of the Lions challenges, and he's posting it, rightly or wrongly. Challenge on Chesson Colby from Ali Price, which we're going to chat to Ali. We can maybe ask him about it. It was. He took him out in the air, I thought, got away with it. Hey, yeah, he did, yeah. He touched him in the air, didn't he? Chesson Colby wasn't in touch.
I thought he was just competing for it. Yeah, I thought he was competing for it. I thought the big thing there was he didn't take it out in the full. I didn't really see this whole argument around he took him out in the air. But
yeah, it's more around Mako picking him up. So Mako picking Chesson up after, plops him back on his feet. Razzie saying it's unsafe. There was some stuff in the lead up to the game last week. I reckon Gats is a silent assassin on Twitter as well. I reckon he's there scrolling through, but he's not got a blue tick. I bet he is. But that's what it is, isn't it? It's like Razzie, he was humble after the game. He said best team won, no excuses from their side. There could have been 100 excuses. There could have been, and there wasn't. But whether or not World Rugby allowed to carry on in terms of Razzie calling out the Lions posting clips, I mean, why not? It's if they lose 3-0, the egg's on his face, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the thing is, right, and this is just my take on it, what is the difference between Razzie whacking something on Twitter and airing his views that way to Warren Gatland airing his views to the newspapers in a press conference? Is there much of a difference? I know you go into sort of another degree by showing clips, but it's just another form of media, isn't it? So, yeah, I mean, we want characters, don't we? We want to hear this, back and forth between the coaches. And I think you look at it and you think, I think it's brilliant. They're not characters that are dislikable. It's not, they're not slagging each other off. They're not going into personal or anything like that. It's just having a bit of fun in the press. And, sometimes Eddie Jones does it. And sometimes we call him out for some of the ridiculous things he says. But, these two, I'm quite enjoying the entertainment, because actually, the entertainment of the Lions tour so far hasn't been that great in terms of the rugby on the field. It was all building up to this big crescendo of the test match. And, the test match was intense. It wasn't played at a pace. I reckon me and you could have handled that pace, Jim. Maybe not the physicality, but it wasn't the best spectacle to watch as a game of rugby, was it? A lot of kick tennis, a lot of big hits, a lot of tackling. Very little ball in hand, and that was the way this first test was always going to be. So, in reality, if you're going to have a bit of banter across Twitter, and Razzie Erasmus is there doing that, and Gats is going in through different media channels, what's the difference? It's a bit of fun, and I don't mind it.
I need to call Razzie out though, because I've been following him, then unfollowing him, and then following him, and I must have followed and unfollowed him 100 times, so he sees me. So there's some visibility. I don't know if he's hitting verified or not, but he's not picked up the hint that I'm keen for him to follow me. I tried to get him on the podcast before the Lions tour as well. Let's just say he replied saying, "Mate, you're a legend," and then nothing else. Didn't hear a whisper off him. Didn't hear a peep, lads, I'll be honest. If I'm being honest, I didn't hear a peep off him. So, Razzie, we're calling you out. If you carry on tweeting and don't follow me, I'm calling you out next week, calling you a joker. There you go, have it.
Oh, you are, Jim. You are. That's why you're the enforcer.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of enforcers, Marrow.
Yes.
Massive game from him over the weekend.
And I put myself in a bit of a hole, didn't I, Andrew? As you know, as I was tweeting, let's talk about it. That's how we live our lives. I tweeted that Peter Steph Toy, best forward in world rugby right now. And then obviously Marrow was doing what he was doing. It was off the back of Marrow getting absolutely monstered by Eben Etzebeth, and then Marrow turning Eben Etzebeth over, and then getting the line out, steal, and then getting a turnover, then another turnover, then another turnover.
He played bloody well, didn't he?
He's a big game player, Andrew, and this is what I mean. When you look at the refereeing around it, he got away with quite a lot, as Eben Etzebeth did as well. So I think if you can, Marrow plays well every week. Every week he does something in the game, or he does a number of things in the game which are like, this guy is world class. Yeah. But there's always the element of him giving away penalties and whatever.
Why been horrible?
It's true.
I know, but coaches did he give any away at the weekend? Why been horrible?
But arguably he could have given away penalties. So it kind of goes for him and against him. But he's that dominant in what he does. And this is, we were chatting last week, Goody, in the build up to the game, and you're talking about Adam Beard, how well he did in the lead up to the test matches, and you're thinking, right, he can be in because of what he does around the tie. No one does it better than Marrow around the tie. And when you're doing them things around the maul, when you're trying to steal the ball, when you're close to your try line trying to steal the ball, and everything's in favour of the attack, that's why Marrow gets pinged. And some of the stuff, when he's knocking hands out, he's knocking the scrum half's arms. Some referees let you get on with that. And Nick Berry let them get on with that for both sides. Yeah. He didn't referee the breakdown as strictly as we've seen it refereed in the Prem, for example. So Marrow was in his element in that sense. And his battle with Eben Etzebeth, and we obviously had Eben on the podcast a few weeks ago in the lead up to the tour. We're talking about 2 out of 3 best second rows in world rugby. Do you know what I mean? Of the modern game. Brody Retallick's in that mixer as well.
Alan Jones.
So top 10 in Northern Hemisphere. I'm joking. Top 15 or 20. Look, Alan Wynne-Jones is good.
You're horrible.
If you look at the output of Marrow and Eben on the pitch, they are light years. Not light years. They're ahead of the game. But what Alan Wynne-Jones, you see his. Like, he's a leader, isn't he? Any decision, he's there. He's close to the referee. He's slowing the ball down. He's hard as nails. So I thought Marrow and Alan Wynne-Jones, as we were predicting who was going to play last week, obviously the team got leaked out. That's the right setup for the team. And then you throw in Courtney Lawes as well. But if you're talking about enforcers, I thought Evan looked brilliant as well. He was attacking. We'll chat to Ali Price and ask him if he could even smell the size of Evan's arms coming from the blind side and the way that he plays. But no, absolutely loved it. Like them two, they are world-class locks, and I did enjoy it. And I'm biased because I'm one of the enforcers as well.
Well, a couple of things on that, Jim. Firstly, you're talking about outputs. Who was the British and Irish Lions top tackler at the weekend?
Mara.
Alan Wynne-Jones. So you talk
was
about
he
outputs.
16?
Yes. No, 10.
Was he 10?
10 tackles. 10 tackles.
Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's all he needed. That's all he needed. But he led the way. He led the way as skipper. And
Dominant
secondly,
tackles?
I don't know about those stats. I haven't gone that
Okay.
far.
Well,
I don't know about those stats.
Just asking.
Yeah.
Just
I don't know about those. I don't know about those stats. I haven't delved that deep into dominant and soak-up tackles and Jim Hamilton tackles because there's 3 brackets, isn't there? But what I will say, why is Maro so good? Why is he so good? Because he learned from the best. He learned from the absolute best. George Cruz. He learned from George Cruz and Swinno down at South. No, he learned from you, Jim. You were his mentor, weren't you?
Well, what happened with me and Maro, and I'm happy to put it on record again, if I wasn't so shy towards the end, they would never have fast-tracked him through. So the listeners out there, if you've not listened 2 or 3 years ago, you're welcome. If it wasn't for me being so crap, they would not have fast-tracked Maro Itoje through, and arguably he'd still be on the tour, but would he be as good? It's a rhetorical question because we don't really know. And I'm sat here retiring in the box room on my own talking crap on a podcast. But nonetheless, we're both successful in our own rights.
Yeah, you say that, Jim. It was interesting, because loads of different selection sort of points came out last week. I thought Jack Conan as well answered, loads of questions around his selection. People were shocked that Falatau wasn't involved in the 23. Conan, I thought, was brilliant. The whole back row, Courtney Lawes was the big one as well. We were chatting to Stevie Ferris on Thursday with Rugby Pass, and
Plodder.
Good mates for Stevie. Yeah, good mates for Stevie. A lot of time, a lot of respect for his opinions. He says what he thinks, which I love. He called Courtney Lawes a plodder, didn't he, Jim? And he's like, I don't see that selection.
It up. He backed it up with stats. He convinced me.
He didn't convince me, because I've seen a lot of Courtney Lawes, and he just goes around banging boys for fun. And he carried well, got turnover. Courtney Lawes was brilliant. It was very close between him and Maro for man of the match, I thought. Obviously, Maro won it in the end, but Courtney Lawes I thought was phenomenal. And the game was perfect for him, wasn't it? Yeah, that physical sort of close quarter battle where, Courtney is immense in that. He's probably the best in the world as a 6 doing that sort of stuff. Him and probably Peter Steph Toy as the 2 6s. It's funny, isn't it? Because I know Peter Steph Toy wears 7, but everyone forgets that in South Africa, the 7 is the 6 and the 6 is the 7. So Khaleesi wears 6, he's actually the open side, and vice versa. People don't see that, do they, James?
I did see it on a few of the scrums and was going to take a picture and tweet it, but I didn't think it would get the interaction that I hoped it would, so I left it.
Okay, James.
Well, it speaks volumes of the game that you guys have pretty much just talked about the forwards. Was there anyone in the backs or anything that stood out for you with either back line? Anyone impress you?
I mean, first up, opening player of the game pretty much for the Lions, Elliot Daly, how your ribs? I mean, I'm looking at it going, that needs checking, because he's flown. Ammer's absolutely flown out the line and smoked him. And I'm thinking, we've got to see a replay of that. We hardly saw a replay for 5 minutes. I was just gagging to see the replay, thinking that he'd gone really high on him.
Ballsy to do that.
Yeah, very, very. Because that's, mate, you get that half an inch wrong, and it's night, no biscuit. You got a red card, and you're 2 or 3 minutes into the game. But my God, what a shot that was! That made me think, geez, I'm so glad that we're out the game for a long time now, Jim, because that was brutal.
Jim, talk to me why you think the Springboks are going to improve and win the second test.
Because they have to. For
insight.
Yeah, of course. I've given you everything there. But they do. They have to, don't they? Like, they're the world champions. Yeah. They're at home. Like, it is not, you don't want to throw desperate measures, but when it comes to sport, and they weren't that far away. That's what I mean. They weren't that far away at the weekend, having not played. I think in order for everything they're going through as a country, that's what they latch onto. Do you know what I mean? I think that they're going to latch onto that emotion. Whether or not that's enough, it's going to be close, and it's going to come down to a yellow card. Does Hamish Watson get yellow carded for a similar challenge this weekend? Do you know what I mean? Does the TMO feeling the pressure to give the try this week to Willie LaRue? So I think as a neutral and as a fan, it would be good to see it go down to the third test because it gives us another week, doesn't it, of drama and emotion in the build-up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions win. I think the quality they've got, the build-up they've had has been seamless apart from a couple of COVID cases. They seem tight. Whatever team they put out there, we're speaking about the back line, not really playing that well, yet they still won. First half losing 12-3, still won. But the romantic in me, and I do like a spoon every Christmas. I genuinely do. I do like a spoon on a cold winter's night, and
with Beck
and a pillow. Yeah, yeah. She said she wants more. I'm not a cuddler, Andrew.
No, I'm cuddly though, so send it down my way if you want.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. Are you all hairy, like a hairy beanbag? I'm going to go, if I'm going to give my expert opinion, I'm going to say, fuck it. I'm going to go for South Africa. 1-1, Lions take the third test, but we'll think about that next week.
Well, we can go inside the Lions camp now and have a chat with the man who starred for the British and Irish Lions at the weekend. Scrum half Ali Price joins us. How are you, mate?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you. Good weekend's work, so yeah, spirits are good.
Ali, what's better? The fact that you won a test match and you started a game for the Lions, or that your social media has gone up 50% in the last 3 months? What?
Jim, we're not all as shallow as you, mate.
Definitely the result on the weekend. I think most players would agree that your first sort of test start would be the biggest game of your career, and it definitely was for me. And to get over the line with a win as well, it was a pretty special day.
I'm sure it was, and we'll come on to the game in a bit. But first and foremost, I just want to chat about. I can hear that strong Scottish accent coming out, and you're like Jim. You born north of the Hebrides in Swindon as well?
Yeah, the east coast of England, Norfolk was where I was born.
Ali, give us a snapshot. Yeah, give us a snapshot of your backstory, because I know we joke about it, and it's one of 4 nations now because you're a British and Irish Lion. I can't say that, so I basically just have to justify my Scottishness everywhere that I turn. But just your backstory is quite interesting, isn't it? How you've got to where you are. Just give us a snapshot on that, because people will be listening to this and they'll be like, "Oh, Ali Price, Hamish Watson, not Scottish accents." There are obviously roots to greatness, as I know. I mean, as you know. Just give us a snapshot of why you've got an English accent, played for Scotland, and now you're an absolute legend.
So yeah, grew up in England. My dad was born in England. My mum was born in Edinburgh, so that's the Scottish link. Me and my brother brought up down in Norfolk, went to school in Cambridgeshire, and then when I finished school, went to Bedford Blues Academy, who had an under-19 team. Was playing an academy game for them, and there was a sort of Scottish exile scout, if you were, watching a match against Cambridge University actually, and got an email off the back of that inviting me to sort of Scotland under-20 trials up in Leeds initially, and just it kind of went from there, to be honest. That was when I was like 18, so I had 2 years at 20s. The first year didn't really go anywhere, and it's gone from there. I ended up in Glasgow, and the rest is history, I guess.
Can you imagine, Ali, the amount of lads that are watching you at the weekend, being like, "I was better than him. How is he there? I was better than him. He was at Bedford. He was like playing Cambridge Uni. He was there. He was this. And now look at it." Can you imagine the amount of people saying that?
There probably are some, to be honest, but look, this is how it's played out, so I'm not complaining.
Jim's still saying it now about Maritoji as well, by the way. So we'll get to that in a bit. Mate, it's great having you on. Any banter from the lads around the English accent? Obviously being a heavy Scotsman as well. You know, we had Hamish on as well a few weeks back, and he was saying that he's fully Scottish, even though he's Leicester born and bred pretty much. Must be some banter, especially on a Lions tour when, you know, you've got some harsh Scottish accents coming out, no doubt, in Hoggy, and some South African Scottish accents coming out in Duhan van der Merwe.
Yeah, I think it's not too bad, to be honest. And when I moved up to Glasgow, I thought I'd get it tight as well, and it was never that bad. A few of the boys were like, "You don't sound very Scottish," because they hadn't heard me speak before. But no, nothing terrible, to be honest. It is what it is. I grew up down in England. My mum's Scottish. I followed that route, and here we are.
Yeah, it's not too bad, is it? I'm just in complete denial, Smiler, to be honest with you. I just try and justify it all the time. Let's just talk about your rise then. And we're going to go back before we talk about the test match. Obviously, you've been exceptional on tour, all the romance about getting on tour. And then it gets to the week of the test match. Conor Murray, the week before, is named as captain, which obviously means that potentially the only place up for grabs is a bench spot. Then Alan Wynne-Jones comes in. A lot's been spoken about your form. We can't get away. Conor Murray, world-class player. He was class when he came on as well. But how was it for you learning that you were going to make a test day debut as a starting 9?
It was pretty surreal, to be honest. We were all sat in the team room, and in all the previous games so far, Gats has just gone up the front with his notebook, put his glasses down, and just read out the team basically. And it was on the Monday of last week that we found out, and you could tell everyone just wanted to know. All the players in the room, you guys would have been the same when you played. You just want to know where you stand, and you can deal with it. And he came in, and there was no reading from his notebook. There was a few slides up on the projector at the front. And he kind of started by saying that it's not a closed door after this first team gets announced. There's, in New Zealand, there were changes between tests and the tour before in Australia. Same thing applies. Not to switch off. If you're not selected, don't get in a huff. It's one team, one squad. We're all working in this together. And kind of everyone's looking around, just being like, just announce the team. Just tell us what it is. And yeah, then it came up positionally on the screen at the front, starting with the front row. So slowly but surely, each unit of the team got announced, and then I seen my name above Biggs, and yeah, so surreal. Couldn't quite believe it. At the same time, then it was like, right, I need to have a brilliant week. Learn my stuff, know exactly what I'm going into, game plan, and just do myself justice. And sorry, I've kind of gone on a bit here, but I tried not to get carried away with it, because I felt like being named was the easy bit. I had to just, like, it to myself. I had to put in the performance on Saturday to kind of prove to myself that I could do it. That was the process.
No,
that's awesome.
Class,
it's awesome. And just going back to it, I'm trying to think back to our careers when something similar would have happened, probably getting picked for England or Jim for Scotland or whoever it was. It's really hard to actually understand from the outside those meetings. Are there loads of looks or glances between the players? Because there's probably very few players that thought they were definitely going to start, because it was so tight selection, wasn't it? So the reaction, do you look down to the floor and just have a little moment to yourself? Do you look around at other boys and they're giving you the nod? It must be so exciting to be in there. But what was the reaction?
Obviously, the names all went up. It was silent, and people digest whether they're in or not. Had a moment, and then Gats kind of said, "Right, well, that's it." And we were off to training straight after, actually. And I think it kind of shows how tight this group is now. I think, like, everyone's a decent bloke here, and everyone's been getting on. And like the first guy that came up to me after we all stood up was Connor, and sort of shook my hand and said, like, "Well done, mate. Like, we'll let's do this," kind of thing. And then got on the bus, and Gareth's just opposite me on the bus, and he stood up and was like, "Look, congratulations, mate. Well done." Like, whether people would have been disappointed and people are obviously happy, and but it didn't matter. We're all in it together. I mean, it was pretty special.
Yeah, I would have been moaning into my coffee, I tell you. If Marrow and Alan Wynne-Jones got picked ahead of me, I would have been moaning into my coffee. Let's talk about the build-up then, because we're obviously here, and I think I messaged you or Hamish and said the atmosphere absolutely buzzing. So in all the bars in Edinburgh, I'm sure London was the same. I don't know whether you get to see or hear that noise, but there is an air of normality back here in the UK and Ireland. Is it weird there? Do you know what I mean? Because are there people out and about? Is it like turning up to the stadium, there's no one there? I know they're very strict on COVID, So without bringing the energy down, how is it when you're in the stadium warming up and the build-ups and stuff?
Yeah, they're not as far on as what it is back in the UK. I mean, where we're based through the week, we're in Hermanus. I don't know if you guys are that familiar with it, but it's about an hour and 20 away from Cape Town. It's a small town, and we're obviously in our bubble here at this hotel. Just go to training and come back, and like the facilities and the hotel here is great, so it's not too much of an issue. But then when we go to Cape Town, obviously it's very much in for the game, and again, the hotel's just us, and we go from there to the stadium, and it's so yeah. And I think in terms of the lockdown here as well, I mean, I don't think we don't drive past any bars or built up areas going to the stadium, so you don't really you don't really see any kind of, what's the word, like, there's no full bars, there's not people out on the streets, with flags and chanting and all the rest of it like it has been back home. In a way, it's kind of helped us focus, and we're just here to do a job almost, and it's brilliant that people back home are able to enjoy it with their friends in the bars and stuff.
How tough has that been then? Obviously, in the build up to the game, we had John Clark on last week, who said he's restricting the boys to play 9 holes of golf on one day, and only if they've got a day off the next. Are you a golfer? Have you been getting the sticks out?
I've had them out twice. I wouldn't say I'm a golfer, but I don't mind a hit. It's been really good, to be fair. I think coming down here from Johannesburg, it's we've got the freedom to go out on the golf course, which is obviously part of the hotel, and we're the only ones here. So to get that sort of fresh air and on our day off, be able to relax. They've got a nice pool and sauna and all that here, which again is only open to us. So I think in terms of making the most of a bubble environment and downtime, it's pretty good.
Let's talk about the game, Ali. A lot of the games that you've played and the games that you've really stood out in is where the game has been fast and you've been on the front foot. Now, people watching the first half, especially, unless you're a rugby purist like myself and a non-expert, you understand that there's a tactical element to it. How tough was it around the breakdown, the pushing, the pulling, the ball bobbling about, and also implementing a kicking game and trying to make sure that that's on point instead of reverting to trying to run everything? I mean, was it as tough as it looked around the breakdown? The physicality, were you shot by it? I mean, Evan was coming from the blind side and hitting you and stuff like that. How was it? How was it playing?
Yeah, it was tough. I don't think either team really got much attacking front foot ball at all, to be honest. But at the same time, I think well, we expected that. I'm sure South Africa were expecting it as well. Was speaking to Biggs in the week and leading up to the game, and I think test matches like that, they're more like chess games in a way. It was who was going to blink first on or make an error that enabled the other team to get further up the field. South Africa, on their run up to the World Cup, they've got a massive kicking focus and winning the aerial battle, and then back in their defence when a team gets bored of it or tries to overplay. And I think that's something that we were very aware of going into that first test, was to not get bored or lose patience within that. They would have their moments in the game, but we didn't want to feed them anything cheap and easy. Because we overplayed, for example. And so I think personally, I had a good grasp of that going into the match, and I sort of knew what would be effective for me was just executing my basics. It's probably, I know I'd had a lot of front foot ball on the tour so far and been able to sort of challenge and all the rest of it. But my basics had also been pretty good, I think, for me anyway, and that was part of the reason still why I'd got selected. So I wanted to make sure that I nailed that. But it was definitely competitive and physical, but I think we all expected it to be like that, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, first half, things weren't going as well as perhaps the Lions would have wanted. 12-3 down at half time. We've been chatting on the podcast prior to you coming on. I basically said that Warren Gatland must have dropped his trousers, got his nuts out, and said, "This is what we've got to do to win, boys." How was that halftime speech? Because ultimately, it was a hell of a turnaround, and it came from pretty much your box kick out of the the 22 in the start of the second half, which was a massive momentum shift, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, our discipline in the first half wasn't great, which fed them the 3-6-9-12.
Yeah,
I know we probably missed a few opportunities at points. Could have been slightly different, but even at 12-3 coming in, we were still in the arm wrestle. You know, it wasn't too big a gap that you're like, oh, we've got to chase the game here. And at the same time, going off what happened in the South Africa A game, the way that they looked or appeared to tire in the second half and towards the end, you know, we back our conditioning, and you know, we've managed to get, well, pretty much all our games in on tour. You know what I mean, in terms of match fitness. We're in a good spot, and I think at half time we were in the arm wrestle. We just had to not gift them cheap points with ill discipline, and still stick to the game plan. And like you said, I think from the kickoff, managing to get the turnover around halfway, big momentum shift that allows us to get into their half. And I think especially in that second half, off our exiting from our own 22, you know, right throughout the second 40, we're able to put pressure on them around halfway and win back the ball. And ultimately, I think that's what led to the win.
Is there much chat, Ali, on the pitch? Banter between the teams? Is anyone screaming at Razzie to put his mask on and to feed water to the boys? They're thirsty. Do you know what I mean? Because there's obviously a little bit after, isn't there? There's a bit before. I don't know if you've seen the stuff on Twitter. You must have seen it going around in camp. Yeah. Is there any chat? I mean, because there's no fans there. I mean, is anyone giving it large ones?
No, sorry to disappoint you. Genuinely, no, there wasn't anything on the field, to be honest. Like I'm not really one to say much anyway on the field, but there I generally keep quiet and try and do my job. But I think everyone was so. It was a physical game. Everyone was getting into each other physically, and yeah, from what I can remember, there wasn't any real words or banter flying around, to be honest. A couple of pushes here and there, but that's about it.
Well, I saw Eben, I'm sure I heard Eben say, like, take that, bro, or something like that to you when he clipped you on the feet or something. So just tell him, if he does that again at the weekend, tell him you'll put Big Jim on him. If he does that again, I'll sort him out next time I get to South Africa. He'll be shitting himself.
I've got a bodyguard back in Edinburgh, but he'll come and get you.
Yeah.
The problem is your bodyguard's got spaghetti arms, so I'm not sure what Jim could do with that these days. Talk to us about Faf then, because obviously, you know, he's the fulcrum of their team really in terms of energy. You know, first and foremost, give him some banter about his head. You talked to him about his highlights because they looked a bit blonder at the weekend. But playing against him, you know, you're actually very similar players in terms of your energy, aren't you? And how you go about your business, except for the blonde locks, and yours is obviously dark brown. But a good battle playing against him. You enjoyed it?
Yeah, really enjoyed it. You know, I love to play in these games where I'm challenging myself against some of the best in the world at my position, and that was no different on the weekend. You know, he's proven that he's a quality 9, and yeah, I always relish the opportunity to play against someone like Faf. You know, I guess it's a team's job to try and stop a player like him, and I think the pressure we put on around the breakdown and when he was trying to exit, I think you know, anything you can do to put a player like that off their game can only be effective for us. And I think on the whole we managed him pretty well, to be honest.
And what about other lads in the squad, Ali? Has Owen spoke to you about me or anything like that? As he said that he was sparring balls at my face when I was at Saracens, as he mentioned it, have you built a relationship with anyone that you thought you might not have?
No, Owen's not mentioned you, Jim. Sorry to disappoint.
Don't mention me. Don't mention me. Don't put him off this game.
Now that you've mentioned it, I might say I spoke to Jim last night.
He's a fucking joker, mate. He's a fucking joker.
I wouldn't be able to single out anyone, to be honest. We've all mixed really well. There's a few guys that when you play against them, you think, God, you're a knob. But when you actually meet them and get to know them and you're on the same team, proper nice blokes. And for me, that's something that I didn't really know how it would go. You know, I think like anyone, you'd be quite nervous coming into this kind of squad with the quality of player. But at the same time, yeah, but you got to just dive right in, haven't you? And it's been good to get to know everyone on more of a personal level, I guess.
The dynamics of the 10s you're playing with, obviously you're going to know Finn Russell exceptionally well from Scotland and previously Glasgow and stuff, but actually Dan Bigger and Owen Farrell are very different 10s, aren't they, in terms of their intensity and how they manage a game. Have you enjoyed sort of getting to know different players in terms of the 10s? You know, Finn's a very laid back character, but very switched on, and, you know, it tries to compete in every play as well, but they're very different characters, aren't they? How have you found that sort of dynamic?
Yeah, they are. Biggs and Faz, very knowledgeable. You know, they know how they want to play inside out, back to front. I think it's helped me as well in terms of there's different ways to play a game, and obviously you guys would know you're always learning as a player, and just like Biggs demands what he wants from the guys around him. But at the same time, he's very cool. He's very calm, and yeah, Finn's very laid back, and you kind of know the style you're going to get with him. At the same time, I think the way Biggs and Faz play in terms of their kicking game and organisation and management of especially that sort of middle third, which is becoming more and more important. It's great to hear sort of how they look at it and how they want to go about it. And yeah, I found it really interesting. I feel like it's helping my game as well in terms of working with other players with different styles.
And how's the build-up, Ali, looking this week? Is it different to the first week because there's a few battered bodies? Obviously, Biggs is undergoing a HIA, so we won't be able to do contact or train till Thursday. I don't know, you know, obviously we're just going based on the info that we know, but is it a slightly different test week, or is it a case of trying to build up the intensity straight away, or kind of look after everyone and get there by Thursday, Friday?
I mean, in terms of this Monday compared to last Monday, we did a similar session, a few games to kind of get the legs going again, and then a bit of organisation towards the end of the session. You know, with plays are already sent out in terms of any changes to set piece plays. So that's just for the boys to learn kind of throughout this evening and ahead of tomorrow, which again is going to be our main training day again. So far it seems pretty similar, to be honest. Biggs aside, I think everyone has pulled through pretty well, and today, yeah, everyone kind of back training and getting the legs going again.
Ali, before you go, are you feeling the love? I mean, I mentioned at the beginning I was at the pear tree at the weekend. Every time I stood up, everyone cheered. Every time you touched the ball, someone cheered. So I felt like I was amongst it. But are you feeling it from back home or not? Do you get a sense of what it's like here? Social media, messages, because there is a lot of hysteria now, and it probably does feel slightly different for you guys there. But are the lads feeling it?
I mean, from what we see online, I guess a little bit, but yeah, like you said, it's hard. It's hard to feel that over here because there's none of it. There's no, we don't go past any kind of built up areas where there's bars and people are out on the street and all the rest of it. There's none of that here, I think. But at the same time, it's great to see the sort of videos and the reactions of people back home, because ultimately that, you know, we're trying to do it for them, make them proud and support us. And Matt Dawson actually sent me a video of Edinburgh after the game. I don't know what bar he was in, but
it was with me.
Was he? Yeah, I mean, it looked class. It looked so good. I think, yeah, once this is all said and done and everyone's back home and can enjoy a weekend out with their mates and that, I think it'd be nice to get back to some sort of normality anyway.
All right, Ellie. Well, thank you very, very much for coming on the show, mate, and best of luck for the rest of the tour. And no doubt when you do finally get back here, you'll be able to enjoy some of that atmosphere.
Top lad.
Yeah. Yeah, lovely guy. Actually, another Englishman that's gone up north, eh, Jim?
Well, no. This isn't England and Scotland, Andrew. This is the British and Irish Lions.
Yeah,
it's
you're
4
right,
nations coming together.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a top lad.
Yeah, lovely guy, the way. And you can see how much. Sometimes you look at the boys and you think they're the legends on the Lions tour, but you kind of get that feeling from him that he is soaking up every second of it and learning a lot from all the other players around him. So, what a lovely bloke, and hell of a story around getting selected and then playing really well in that first test. I hope he gets picked again this weekend.
Yeah, I spoke to him in the lead up to it. I think after he'd just been picked, and I said, "Oh, heard what are your goals for the tour and stuff like that?" I did a thing for Rugby Pass with him, and he said, "I'm going to literally go there and just take everything in, whatever I can, both as a player and off the pitch." And I tell you what, it's class to have him on. We're not going to get a load of stories, a load of banter off him. He's in the middle of a test series, isn't he? He's got a test match at the weekend that if they win, they make, is it history again? Do you know what I mean? They're historic moments, aren't they, that they're going through. So, Ali, the guys at the Lions, thank you for giving this access. It's a treat to chat to him. I like him a lot.
Tim Percival, top man.
Thanks, Gertie. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, producer Tim. And thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube and make sure you head on over to Spotify, and we'll see you there.
Rugby Spod.
Spoti.fi.